Alrighty, good morning, friends. Welcome back to my channel. On this channel, we talk about immigration, investment, basically the things that support a free lifestyle, the ability to move in space and to be location independent and also pay good taxes. I want to share a few success stories, how people came to be free. Okay, and I'd like to hear your story as well. How did you make your money? How are you making your money? Are you investing in anything? Is it real estate? Is it American stock market? Is it something else maybe? Are you investing in Chinese stock market? I don't know, but I'd love to hear your stories in the comments as well. Okay, but we're gonna start today with a little story about a friend of mine who relocated to Georgia, the country, of course. And as you know, in my well, based on my previous videos, Georgia is this little gem a lot of people don't know about. It's like a little Dubai 20 years ago. It's growing very quickly. It's beautiful. It's basically exploding in terms of real estate investment, of course, if you are into that. But point is, it's a beautiful little place and it's very tax efficient. You can pay 0% taxes on a lot of types of income. You can do business very easily, especially comparing with Thailand. I'm in south of Phuket right now in Thailand, and here is a pain to set up a company. You need to hire like two Thai people per one foreigner. Here it's really complicated. So Georgia has none of that, basically 2 hours and $50 and you're an individual entrepreneur. But it's not about that today. Today is the story of a friend of mine. That friend of mine is from Moscow. Okay, he's Russian, and he moved out of Moscow in January 2022. Okay, and as if you know a little bit of history, probably you know what happened in February of 2022. Well, he didn't know anything about that. He was planning to get out anyway, and a lot of people they move and they don't exactly plan for those events. Speaking of Russia, the climate can be very turbulent, financial and political, but it is what it is. Point is, he sold his apartment in Moscow in January 2022 and went to Georgia. And he was actually quite lucky because he could convert money to dollars at a good rate before sanctions started. And he could even send it through SWIFT. As you know, Russia is banned from using SWIFT, and it's really complicated to get your money outside the country. So Russia is not exactly a perfect place for a digital nomad today, unless you really love Russia and you want to be inside the country. But not about that today. So a friend of mine comes to Batumi, Georgia, and he has about 110,000 American dollars budget, and he buys two apartments in one of the buildings. The one he bought called Batumi View is one of my favorite. It's right next to the water, right next to this Lech and Marie Kaczynski Park. Absolutely gorgeous. Point is, he buys it in January, February 2022. Long story short, in the beginning of this year, right now, 2025, he sells both of them at a triple profit. Each apartment goes for about $150,000, and on top of that, he was living in one of them and not paying rent all these years. It's a pretty substantial growth. So he essentially tripled his money, and he actually, as we speak, relocated to Australia. See, that's the point. He wanted freedom, he wanted a more stable environment himself, and he created it with his own hands. And he started pretty modestly. I don't want to say the $100,000 is a little amount of money, but it is a good amount. But in the grand scheme of things, when you have millions of dollars, typical cost of apartments in Europe, for example, you come to Berlin, was it 700,000 euros is pretty much the basic level. So yeah, 100,000 is really not a lot. It's enough maybe for a down payment, but it's not about that today. So I have my laptop right here, and I will talk to you a little bit numbers today as well, and we will compare a few real estate investments around the world with American stock market. And I just want to show you the point that you don't have to stick to one or the other. You can do both, of course, and they have different level of return. And I will compare today, what if you invested 10 years ago your money into apartment in Dubai, in Berlin. I think Berlin is a good representation of overall European market, and also quite optimistic as well, because again, it does perform better than the others. But my point is, European market of real estate is really stable and it's not exactly growth driven. So I'll show you what I mean. And we'll compare that with American stock market and my favorite ETFs, the funds which buy the shares and you can own a part of that. That's my favorite. That's not the point. So this friend of mine, he managed to move his family. He has two children and a wife to Australia. And as we speak, he's enjoying his life. I think he even got a mortgage in Australia and he bought himself a house. Because with $500,000 American dollars, it's a good starting budget for a new life in a new country for sure. And I know that a lot of you are watching me. Some of you are from African countries, by the way. If you know who you are, hello to you. Some of you from Eastern European countries, all over the world, pretty much. And this video is directed for you, exactly. Tell me your stories as well in the comments. Are you making money? How are you investing it? What are your plans for life? Do you want to acquire multiple citizenships? Is it something you're interested in or not? I'm a big believer in freedom, and I do think that we don't belong to just one country. The whole world should belong to us. And ideally, it's a good idea to have a portfolio of passports which allow you freedom and access anywhere in the world. It is what it is. Anyway, so let's move on. Before we get to numbers, one more story, okay? That story was a success story about this Georgian investment with a Russian guy. Really, he was very smart. He is very smart. He's an IT guy. Honestly, a good example for following. But another not so great example happened to me in Turkey. So imagine year 2023 summer, and I'm in Turkey. So me and my wife we came to one of those huge leather stores. As you know, they have a lot of leather products, and you can buy them. But the thing about Turkey, they really love to negotiate. So whatever price you see, they first actually don't have prices anywhere. You're supposed to ask every time, how much is this? How much is that? How much is that? Which I personally don't like. I like to know the numbers. Most of my shopping is number based, but not for Ellie, not for women maybe. I don't know. Point is, leather jacket. Ellie chooses, she loves it, and they say it's 2,700 euros, but only today you can get it for 1,000. Yeah, right, of course. Anyway, so she negotiated a little bit more, and I pretended, actually, I didn't pretend. I was really irritated with all of that, and I guess that helped her to bring down the price to 700 euros, and he bought it. While she was doing that, I was talking to another salesman, and he was trying to process me into buying something. Well, he didn't. Look, I'm a horrible customer, I know, but I don't want to buy something I don't need. Anyway, so he tells me that he owns 3 apartments in Turkey, in the south of Turkey. He bought them 10 years ago at $40,000 a pop each. And now he tells me that every single one of them is 4 times the price, 5 times the price. Basically, he is a dollar millionaire, which is incredible. And I congratulated him, of course, with that. And he kept going on that in Turkey they have these oil reserves that are going to untap them. There's this will happen, that will happen. Well, he was very emotional about it, and I decided, well, I'm not. Okay, so that's an interesting conversation at this point. And I decided just to pull up my phone and do some Googling. There's no reason to be emotional talking about investments, but there is a reason to be objective. So I started Googling, checking numbers, and I came to a conclusion, actually, I showed him some proof that some of the things he was saying was not exactly the truth, and that it was not the projection of the Turkish economy. And of course, why the apartment grew was mostly because there's huge amount of Russian people coming from because of the war. They were coming to Turkey, and the main condition was they were buying these apartments to get a permanent residence. At that time, the cost was about $150,000, $180,000, I think, for an apartment you could buy to qualify for a permanent residence. So a lot of people were shopping in this exact price range. So the funny thing is, later Turkey changed the rules to I think $300,000 per apartment to get a permanent residence. And on top of that, they started to introduce, as I call it, poor country behavior. They introduced a tax on your phones. Can you imagine? So you come, yes, it's weird, hear me out. You come to Turkey with your iPhone. Let's say you have a brand new iPhone, like the one I'm shooting this video on right now, is 16 Pro Max. Cost is about $1,300. So you need to pay approximately 100% tax on your phone if you want it to work in Turkey. If you don't, after 30, maybe 60 days, it stops working. That's as weird as it gets. And yes, a lot of people had to pay it who are living there, but me personally, I think it's deeply disrespectful to introduce such rules and regulations. If they do that with phones, what happens in healthcare? What happens in other parts of life in the country? And of course, you know what happened to the Turkish lari. It used to be every year is different. So it used to be 1 to 1 of American dollars some time ago. Then it was one of the times I was in Turkey was 7 per dollar. Now it's about like 40 or 35 or something like that. It's extreme inflation of the economy. And his investment turned out to be horrible because no one needs apartments in Turkey right now. No one is buying them. There's zero interest. is the country which is failing and it's not doing good at all. And I guess my point is it's really important to choose your investments wisely. And Georgia is a better example here because they are a bit smarter and they do not introduce this weird rules like you have to pay tax on your phone. And on top of that, they have really good car prices. Now, for people who love cars and motorcycles like me, it's a heaven. You can buy whatever you want. Basically, American price, just a very little tax on top. Very good prices. But let's keep going. I'd like to compare an apartment in Berlin, Dubai, with some stocks, specifically Coca-Cola stock. I think that's the one which is very close in return to those apartments. So, my table, let's go. Berlin. Year over year on average, apartment in Berlin will grow about 3% in dollar value per square meter, of course, I mean. Okay? So if you buy something there, so that's what you can expect. On top of that, if you're renting out an apartment, you can expect about 3% more per year in terms of your rental income. Of course, I calculated already that number, including the utilities, the reparations, whatever you need to do there. It's all included. So the total return per year is about 6%, a very conservative number. Of course, you're not going to lose money, but it's a conservative number because market is heavily regulated in Germany. And if you're a renter, you have a lot of power in your hands as well. So if you're a landlord, you need to follow them. Not exactly easy. Let's go to Coca-Cola on the other hand. Capital growth per year of your stock on average is about 6%, which is double of what it is in Berlin, which is 3%, as I told you. Okay, you need to try to visualize. And by the way, you don't need to keep looking at this video. It's mostly audio based. You can just do your life, do what you need to do, but I will continue speaking here. Let's go. So the yield and dividends per year on average is about 3% for Coca-Cola as well. And the total return is 9%, which is more than 6. It's actually 50% more than 6. And even at this point, we can see that Coca-Cola investment is better than apartment in Berlin. So, which is also says that it's actually better than most apartments in most European, especially Western European countries, because they are developed, established, the market is not moving quickly. And that's a good thing because they are developed and established. So of course, you want to go and invest in something which is growing and has a higher growth potential, like Georgia or Dubai, for example. But let's move on. Now, speaking of Dubai, the average capital growth for your apartment is about 4% per square meter. I mean, of course, per year. And the yield, the dividends, the rental income is about 6% for the Dubai apartment. So the total number is about 10%, which is beating Coca-Cola, but it introduces, of course, a bit more work because it's a real apartment. You need to go to places, you need to sign contracts, you need to fix problems with your tenants and your apartments. It's not bad, and diversification is good. I'm not telling you to put all your money to Coca-Cola. And in fact, there are much better stocks as well than Coca-Cola and even ETFs. But let's keep going. What is better or similar to apartment in Dubai? In fact, the number on average is exactly the same. That's going to be SCHD. This is a Schwab high dividend ETF. Basically, that's an ETF with American stocks such as Chevron, that's oil, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, McDonald's, these sort of basic brands, the ones which we always have in our lives. Those are not exactly growth stocks, but they're there, they were there, and they will probably be there. And this ETF is also rebalanced once a year. They always try to put the highest quality dividend companies in it. It's a very stable, very high quality ETF, which grows on average about 7% per year. And we have about 3% dividends, 3.5% per year as well. The total number is 10, 10.5, just a little bit above what you can get in Dubai, but very, very comparable. Also, of course, much less maintenance because, well, you just buy and hold, and Dubai apartment is a bit more management involved. Okay, but see, the thing is, Dubai is also known for other things, and if you have a lot of crypto money and these sort of things, you can bring them to Batumi, Georgia, and you can bring them to Dubai and convert it to something real. You can't exactly do that, within banks and ETFs and this sort of investments. So really it depends on your needs. Okay, but let's move on. What about something which grows even faster, even stronger. Let's take VGT ETF. This one is tech-based and moreover, it's more AI-based. A lot of companies which are somehow involved in AI production, like NVIDIA, AMD, and all the other companies which are tech-related, they're in this ETF, and that's a very high growth ETF. On average, goes about 15% per year. That's a lot. Plus the dividend. Dividend is very low. It's less than 1%, it's 0.8 on average, because these are growth stocks. And these companies usually don't pay out a lot of dividend. Okay, just something to keep in mind. Well, the total return is very close to 16%, which is quite a lot. It's basically 3 times more than an apartment in Berlin, but it's also a bit more volatile. So if you have stomach to sustain it, then it's a good investment. And I would say, even in my case, I definitely have it in my portfolio. It's not 100%, but it's a significant percentage of my portfolio, because I do think it's a very good ETF. And you can look at the graph for 20 years of this ETF, and you can see that some years are better than the others, but the growth is usually there. Let's move on. What if you want monthly payments? An ETF which mimics the behavior of a typical apartment rental. It's going to be JEPQ, JP Morgan qualified something. I don't remember the exact name of it, but JEPQ, you can Google it and you'll find it. The typical capital growth in this one is about 3 to 5%. It's very modest, but they have very high dividends, about 11% currently. That's a covered call ETF, something to keep in mind. And I don't want to go too deep into the details what it is today in this video, but it is JP Morgan. It is also a relatively stable, maybe it's not as stable as STHD, but it's a very stable investment. And this one in total gives you approximately 14-15% per year. But the thing is, 11 of this percent is paid out on a monthly basis. They fix the price on 1st of every month, and before the 5th, you get the money in your bank account all the time. And you can calculate yourself, if you put $100,000 in such ETF, you'll have a pretty significant already substitution to your lifestyle per month. Very competitive ETF with that's a good alternative to an apartment. In fact, actually, if you look at the numbers, it's beating an apartment in Dubai and definitely beating an apartment in Berlin. Something to keep in mind, okay? And let's do one more, the bonus stock for today. That's a single stock, that's not an ETF, NVIDIA. NVIDIA showed incredible results, and if you calculate the performance of it over the last 10 years, it's going to be about 49-50% per year. Incredible growth. And don't forget, we also have compound interest on top. So if you put $10,000 in NVIDIA 10 years ago, you're going to be a rich millionaire today. But the thing is, you need to know what you're doing. And NVIDIA was not one stock to look after 10 years ago. There was also AMD, there was also Intel. Intel actually fell, and Intel was a much bigger player at the time. You really need to know what you're doing, and you need to look at the numbers and think. So single stocks are a little bit riskier, and NVIDIA is definitely one of the riskier ones. Of course, notable mentions could be also Tesla, Apple, Google, Microsoft is doing very good lately. It is what it is. Anyway, guys, that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. And as I said before, on my channel, I love conversations about immigration and investment. If you have something interesting to share, let me know here in the comments. Tell us your story. What is your life goal? What's your priority? Are you trying to move in space? Do you want to relocate somewhere? How do you handle your investments? I would really love to know. Okay, and then, by the way, if you want to join our private groups and just talk to me and like-minded people, you can click links here below to Patreon. If you're into that, you don't have to do it, but it is what it is. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a beautiful, gorgeous day. I'll talk to you later. Alligator, bye-bye.